She found him bleeding out in a box canyon with nobody coming for him. She had a wanted circular in her pocket with his face on it. She gave him water, not out of mercy, but because a dead man paid half the bounty. If you want more stories like this, subscribe and comment where you watching from. The Dragoon Mountains at dawn were cold and quiet. The desert floor was pale sand and red rock, and the air smelled of dust and dry brush. Nothing moved. Nalin moved. She had been tracking for 3 days. She wore elk-hide moccasins with a double rawhide sole, and she walked the limestone ridge above the canyon without making noise. In her right hand was a Winchester Model 1873 she had traded 3 days of trail guiding to get. She did not think of the rifle as a possession. She thought of it as a tool, the way she thought of her knife and her needle, and her water flask. She saw the blood from 40 feet up, dark stain in the pale sand. She tracked it backward first. The man had come in through the canyon mouth already wounded, had slowed as he went deeper, had finally gone down near 2 dead cottonwoods at the back of the canyon. She tracked it forward, 60 yards from the mouth, one boot dragging, then the wide splash of blood where his head had hit a boulder going down. He was on his back between the 2 bare trees. White man. Dark wool coat, split at the collar. Hat 3 feet from his head. Brown hair matted with dried blood at the right temple. His right hand was open and flat in the sand at his side, not near his colt, not reaching for anything. The hand of a man who had stopped fighting. His chest was moving. Shallow, but moving. She came down the east wall by a crack in the rock she had used before, dropped the last 4 feet, came up with the Winchester pointed at him. She walked to him from the side, not the feet. She took the Colt from his holster and put it in her own belt. Then she crouched and looked at the wounds. Knife wound in his left side, below the ribs. Long cut, deliberate. Made by someone standing close. Someone he had let get that close. 4 or 5 hours of slow bleeding. There was also a bullet graze above his right ear. Head wounds bleed hard. That one was not going to kill him. The knife wound might. His eyes opened. Gray. Clear, which surprised her. A man that far gone on blood loss should not have clear eyes. "Go on then," he said. His voice was rough. Southern accent, worn down by years out west but still there underneath. "If you're here to finish it." She did not answer. She was looking at the knife wound. "You speak English," he said. "When it is worth the breath," she said. She set the Winchester on the ground within her reach and opened the leather case on her belt. Clean muslin. Pine resin salve. Gut thread. A needle. A small flask of Tiswin, Apache corn beer, strong enough to clean a wound. She uncapped the flask and smelled it. Good. She looked at the wound, then at the man. "This will hurt," she said. "I figured. If you fight me, I leave you." He said nothing for a moment. The dead cottonwood branches knocked against each other in the cold air. "You're not going to kill me," he said. Working it out slowly. "No, why not?" "You are worth $40 alive," she said. 20 dead. He looked at her. Something moved in his face, not relief exactly. More like a man hearing a fair verdict after a long trial and knowing he deserved worse. "Fair enough," he said. She worked. His name was Silas Thorne. She already knew this. She had the wanted circular in her vest pocket. She had taken it off the board outside the Tombstone Sheriff's office 11 days ago and read it, by firelight before she began tracking, wanted alive or dead. Silas Thorne, also known as Silver Thorne, late of the Vane crew, wanted for armed robbery of the Benson stage line. The shooting of Wells Fargo agent Herbert Danforth, condition, serious. And suspected complicity in the murder of a ranching family near the San Pedro River. $40. Reward for delivery alive to the Cochise County Sheriff's Office. $20 for proof of death. She knew the Vane crew by reputation. 7 men. Their leader, Cord Vane, had ridden with Quantrill during the war. Since the war, he had been robbing stages and mines through the Dragoon and Chiricahua Mountains. The crew used the high country because the terrain was hard, and the law didn't push hard above 7,000 feet. Silas Thorne was Vane's second man. The talker. The one who handled the fences and informants and crooked officials. What the circular hadn't told her was that Thorne had been cut loose. She could read the wounds. The knife had gone in at close range, someone Thorne had allowed near him. The pistol graze on his temple came after the knife, which meant someone had tried to make sure. They had been in a hurry or had been interrupted. Either way, they had not finished the job. She tied off the last suture, pressed a muslin pad over the wound, and bound it with a strip of cloth. "You have enemies," she said. "One crew," he said. His jaw was tight. The Tiswin hadn't fully cut the pain. "7 men. Why did they cut you?" He was quiet, looking at the sky above the canyon. "They think I know where something is," he said. "Do you?" A pause. "Yes." She stood and walked to his horse, a bay gelding tied to the far cottonwood. "Good animal, well fed." She checked its hooves, its legs, the cinch. The horse turned its head and looked at her without fear. "The horse is sound," she said. "Can you stand?" "Likely." "Then stand." She tied his hands in front of him, not behind. Behind would mean he couldn't catch himself if he fell from the saddle. A man with a cracked skull from a fall was a complicated delivery, and complicated deliveries sometimes meant no payment. She used braided rawhide. 3 feet of it, tied in a knot her uncle had taught her, the kind that tightened when you pulled against it and loosened only when you held still. A useful lesson for a man in his situation. Getting him onto the bay was slow. He was taller than he looked on the ground, and the knife wound had stiffened, and he couldn't twist at the waist without going sharp in the breath. He worked to hide it. She noticed he worked to hide it. She didn't comment. She tied the bay's reins to her own horse's saddle, a small Appaloosa mare she had ridden for 6 years, and mounted and turned northeast. Out of the canyon, toward the high country. They rode in silence for the first hour. The Dragoon country in late October was dry and cold. Scrub oak bare. Prickly pear still holding its green. Agave on the rocky slopes, gray-green and sharp. The sky was clear and hard blue. Thorne sat the horse well. Unconsciously well. The ease of a man who had been riding since childhood. His hands rested on the saddle horn without gripping. His eyes moved over the ridgelines and draws. He was cataloging the terrain. She noted this. It was a thing to watch. "You're moving northeast," he said. "Yes, Tombstone is east-southeast, closer." "Tombstone is east-southeast," she said. "And there are 9 miles of flat open valley between here and it." A man on a ridge with a long rifle could watch a rider cross that ground for an hour. A pause. "The crew. You said 7 men. 7 men do not need a canyon." He worked through it. "You think they're already looking. They tried to kill you and failed," she said. "Men like that do not leave unfinished work." She did not tell him what else she had seen. A single set of boot prints on the canyon rim above where she had found him. Someone had stood there and looked down at him, and had not come down. They either thought he was dead, or they had watched her work on him and decided to wait for a better location. Neither was good. The northeast route added a day, possibly more. But it put them in broken high country, ridges, drainages, old rock formations. That was hard ground for 7 men to cover and familiar ground for her. She had walked every foot of it since childhood. It was the right calculation. They climbed. The flash flood announced itself with about 40 seconds of sound. She had been watching the sky, northwest for 2 hours, a dark bank of cloud building over the Penelagos. She had felt the wind shift from southwest to northeast in the last 20 minutes. She had been following a narrow wash at the bottom of a slot canyon that her people called, roughly, the place where the water comes through fast. She had not shared that translation with Thorn. The sound started as a deep, low rumble from around the bend above them. Not thunder. The sound of a large amount of water moving over rock at speed. She had 1 second to decide. Up, she said. Loud. She drove the Appaloosa hard left toward the canyon wall, where a sandstone ledge jutted out 15 feet above the wash floor. There was a rough scramble of broken rock at the base. The Mare knew the difference between a suggestion and an order. She went up. Behind her, the bay balked. She turned on the ledge and saw the problem. The tether rope connecting the bay to her Mare had gone tight. The bay had refused the scramble, and Thorn, hands bound, couldn't force him up with the reins. He was talking to the horse, low, steady. No particular tone, and the bay's ears were working, and the rumble was louder now. Around the bend, she pulled her bowie knife and cut the tether rope. The Appaloosa was free. The bay had its own choice to make. Thorn kept talking. He kept his knees on the horse's sides. And the bay, because horses will sometimes choose a calm voice over their own fear, lurched up the scramble. Front hooves on the rough sandstone. Hindquarters driving. Thorn flat over the neck with his bound hands in the mane. The water came around the bend. 4 feet of brown water carrying broken timber, cactus mud, debris, moving at a full gallop. It filled the wash edge to edge and hit the canyon walls, and the sound of it was total. The bay made the ledge. By 8 feet, maybe less, Thorn straightened up. His face was pale. His knuckles had split from gripping the mane, and there was fresh blood on the backs of his hands. He looked at the water below the ledge and breathed through his mouth, slow and deliberate. Then he looked at her. "You cut the rope," he said. "Yes. You could have ridden out on the Appaloosa. Left me. You are worth $40, she said. I do not leave $40. She was checking the Mare's legs, running her hands down each one. He was quiet a moment. You cut the rope when you didn't have to. It freed the Mare. If she'd run. She did not run. She could have. Nalin looked at him. The spray from the water below caught the afternoon light. Could have, she said, is a country where nothing gets decided. We are here. He held her eyes for a moment. Yes, he said. We are here. They waited for the water to drop. It took nearly an hour. They sat on the ledge with the horses behind them and said nothing, but the silence was different than it had been before. Not comfortable. Not warm, but different. They found the old dwelling before full dark. They had to. She had been checking their back trail since the flood. She had seen dust twice, the second time moving at a pace and direction that wasn't deer or javelina. 4 riders, possibly 5, working through the lower country below them. Following the line of the wash dot, she knew a place. The dwelling was cut into a sandstone bluff, old work. Anasazi, 500 years at least. Small rooms, low ceilings, walls mortared with something that had lasted longer than any nation currently claiming this territory. The ledge path to reach it was narrow, wide enough for a person, not a horse. That was the point. She hobbled both horses in a sheltered draw at the bluff's base. She covered their eyes with cloth to keep them quiet. She took both rifles and the saddlebags and left the saddles. Can you climb? She said. I can climb, Thorn said. Then climb. She led. The path along the bluff face was narrow enough in places to press flat to the rock. She navigated by memory and feel, the temperature of the stone, the texture changing from sandstone to limestone and back. He followed without talking, which she noted. He was afraid in the dark. She could hear it in his breathing. But he was afraid without making noise, which was useful. The main room was 12 feet wide, 8 deep. The ceiling was 4.5 feet at the top, so they both had to enter bent. The floor was packed clay, smooth from centuries of use. There was a smoke hole in the back wall and a fire pit below it. She built a small fire with old juniper deadfall from a cache beside the pit, positioned them both away from the entrance, and they sat down. In the firelight, the drawings on the walls came visible. Petroglyphs cut into the sandstone. Painted figures in red and white and dark brown. Animals. Human hands. Something that might have been a battle or a ceremony. Thorn looked at them for a long time. "Who made these?" he said. "People who were here before," she said. "She was cleaning the Winchester, your people." "No, before my people. Before anyone whose name is remembered. They're gone." "Yes." The fire made small sounds. Outside, the wind moved through the juniper on the slopes below them. "My family was from Georgia," he said. No lead-up, no apology for starting. Plantation family before the war. After the war, it was just bad land that wouldn't produce. My father tried for 10 years. I left in '68 and came west. What did you expect to find? Something different. He looked at his bound hands. I found something different. The vein crew. 4 years, he said. I won't dress it up. We robbed stages, robbed mines. The Wells Fargo agent I shot, the circular says serious condition. I don't know if he lived. He paused. I hope he lived. Hoping is also a country where nothing gets decided. He looked at her through the fire. I know it. But it's all I have for him. She set the Winchester against the wall. The cash, she said. What is it? He was quiet long enough that she thought he wouldn't answer. Wells Fargo strongbox from the Benson stage. 12,000 in currency and bonds. I was the off-rider on the job. I circled back to make sure the law didn't follow the trail to the stash. I was the only one who saw the final location. He looked at the fire. Cord decided 7 ways was too many ways to split 12,000. He decided 5 was better. He killed 2 of your crew. Tried for 3, Thorn said. He touched the dried blood at his temple. The location is in your head, she said. Yes, which is why they need me alive long enough to talk. And why they need to find me before I reach a sheriff and give the law a reason to care about the dragoons. They are not following you for the bounty, she said. They are following you for the cash. Yes, this makes the journey harder. It does. He watched her. You could leave me. Ride for Tombstone alone. No one would fault you. You are worth $40. I have told you this 3 times now. Because you keep suggesting the alternative. Something moved at the corner of his mouth. Not a smile, but close to it. My brother is 14, she said. It came out without preamble. The dark and the old walls did that to a person sometimes. Our mother died 3 winters ago. Our father, a long time ago. Last winter was dry. The agency rations, she stopped. The word agency sat wrong in her mouth. They were not enough. I told my brother I would find a way. The fire dropped low. She could see Thorn's face clearly in the orange light. He was looking at her with an expression she could not fully read. Not pity. Pity she would have recognized and set aside. Something closer to recognition. The look of a man who knows a particular kind of pressure from the inside. The $40, he said. Yes, several months of food if managed carefully. I know how to manage carefully. He was quiet. Then, what did your husband die of? She looked at the coals. He was shot by men from the 6th Cavalry. Spring of '76. He was coming back from the river with water. He was not doing anything that warranted it. She said it flat because the other way of saying it was not available to her in this place, this night. His name was Dakota. It means something like friend to all. That was true of him. Thorn said nothing. He watched the fire for a long moment. I'm sorry, he said. Sorry is also a country where nothing gets decided, he finished. I know, I'm saying it anyway. She looked at him. Sleep, she said. I watch 3 hours. Then you watch. You'd trust me to watch. Your hands are still bound, she said. I sleep light. And if the crew finds us in the night, I need 2 pairs of eyes. Yes, I trust you to watch. He lay down and was asleep inside of 2 minutes. She sat with the dying fire and the drawings on the walls and the sound of the wind outside, and she watched. She found the agave cluster at mid-morning the next day, a dozen plants at the edge of a rocky flat. Gray-green, the bases still damp from overnight wind. She dismounted, tied the Appaloosa loosely to a creosote bush, and took out her belt knife. What are you doing? Thorn said from the bay. She didn't answer. She knelt at the base of the largest plant and began cutting away the outer leaves in layers, outside to center, removing the spined edges in clean cuts, working down to the heart. The pina, dense, pale, heavy. Raw it was bitter. Roasted it was sweet and filling in a way that the desert offered. Almost nothing else. She stood and held the knife out to him. He looked at it. He knew what it meant. She was handing a weapon to a prisoner. He took it. Cut the same way, she said. Outside to center. Watch the spines. His first cut was off. A spine caught the back of his forearm and drew blood. He didn't say anything. He adjusted and tried again. The second cut was better. The third was clean. They worked an hour cutting both plants free. She built a small fire in a hollow in the rocks, lined with flat stones to hold heat. She wrapped the hearts in wet cloth, laid them on the stones, banked the fire, then covered the coals with flat rock. No visible smoke. A slow oven that would keep working for hours. While the hearts cooked, she took out the Appaloosa's left rear stirrup leather. The buckle had been cracking for 2 days and had finally split through on the bluff path the night before. She had a leather punch and awl and waxed thread. She sat with the leather across her knee and worked. She was aware. Thorn had sat down nearby and was watching. After a moment, "Give me the leather." She looked up. "You sutured a knife wound in the field," he said. "Leather's easier." She considered him. Then she handed over the leather, the awl, and the thread. He was slower than she was. His stitches were slightly uneven, but they were solid, the work of someone who had done leather repair before and knew how to set the wrist. When he handed it back, the buckle was sound. She remounted the stirrup on the saddle without comment, but she registered it. The same way she registered everything, stored, categorized, neither dismissed nor overweighted. A man who repaired what was broken without being asked. That was a data point dot. She pulled the pina hearts from the stone oven when they steamed right. She handed Thorn a section and watched him bite into it. He chewed. His eyebrows moved. "Good," he said. One word, genuine. They ate without talking. The horses stood quietly nearby. The ridgelines above them were clear. The sky was solid blue. "Your brother," Thorn said. "What is his name, Bidziel? What does it mean?" "He is strong." She said it the way she always said it, without decoration, but as a fact she believed. "He is strong. But he has been hungry. Those are not the same thing." Thorn looked at his food. "No," he said. "They are not." The Vane crew found them before she found the Vane crew. She had been watching the southeast, where the 4 riders had been tracking. What she had not accounted for was a split. Cord Vane, and she identified him from 40 yards by the description in the circular. By the way he sat a horse, like a man who has never once doubted he was the most dangerous person present. Vane had sent 2 men north to come down from the high country. Above, while he and 3 others pushed from below. They were moving single file through a limestone. Defile when the 2 riders appeared on the ridgeline above. She reversed immediately, Appaloosa backing. Bay following, came out of the defile at a canter. turned north and up toward a boulder cluster she had flagged that morning as a fallback position. She got there, drove both horses behind the largest boulder, granite, size of a freight wagon, sitting on a limestone shelf with clear sight lines in 3 directions, and was off the Appaloosa with the Winchester before the horses stopped moving. "Cut me loose," Thorne said. She looked at him. She had 1 second. She cut the rawhide. He was off the bay and behind the second boulder with the saddle, rifle, a Winchester 1866 brass receiver, before she had finished counting positions. They looked at each other across the space between the rocks. Nothing needed saying. 6, she said quietly. "Cord keeps a man back," Thorne said, same volume. "Rufus Mears, long rifle. He'll be on the high ground somewhere. Don't skyline." She moved to the eastern end of the cluster and read the slope. Key feature: a dry drainage cutting across the hill below them, lined with scrub oak, running northeast to southwest. Good lateral cover. Vane would use it. 2 through the drainage, 2 up the open slope, she said. "That's Cord's way," Thorne confirmed. "How many rounds do you have?" 3. She looked at him. "I know," he said. 17 rounds in the Winchester. 3 in his. 6 men. 1 of them on a ridge with a scope. The first shot came from the drainage, faster than she'd estimated. It hit the granite face of the large boulder and left a white scar. She was already low. She fired back at the muzzle flash. Heard a hit, couldn't tell if person or rock. Then she moved. She went along the back of the cluster, low and fast. Dropped off the south end of the shelf, 5-foot drop, came up in a crouch and circled the formation. She came around the south face and found 2 riders 40 yards up the open slope. The left man had seen her and was raising his gun. She shot him first. She chambered the next round. The second man went flat behind a creosote bush, no real cover. But instinct doesn't calculate. She fired at his mass. The bush moved. Went still. Behind her, 2 shots from Thorne's 1866, tight together. He was working the drainage, 1 to keep a head down, 1 for when it came back up. She had burned 3 rounds. Movement to her left on the slope. Cord Vane on horseback, coming hard. She recognized him from the posture. 40 yards and closing. She put the Winchester to her shoulder and fired at the horse, because a dead man's crew doesn't stop. It scatters and regroups, and a scattered crew in this terrain was worse than one she could account for. The horse went down slowly and rolled left, and Vane came off it clean. He was experienced. That was a problem. The long rifle hit her. From the ridge to her right, she had been watching her sky angles all engagement and still didn't see it coming. The bullet went through her left shoulder, muscle only, no bone. But her left arm stopped working from shoulder to wrist and the Winchester dropped from her left hand. She kept her right hand on the grip. She went to one knee. She put the barrel on Cord Vane, who was on his feet now, 40 yards. His pistol up and pointed at her. Thorne stepped out from behind the boulders. He was upslope from Vane, 20 yards back, behind the man's eye line. He had the 1866 at his shoulder. He said one word, "Cord." Vane stopped. Didn't lower the pistol. Turned his head slightly. "This ends here," Thorne said. "You'll miss from there," Vane said. His voice was flat. No heat in it, no cold in it either. Just flat. "You always miss under pressure. It's your one failing." 2 rounds left, Thorne said. "I miss with the first. I don't miss with the second. Those are better odds than you're offering." Vane's pistol stayed on Nalin. He was measuring whether she could fire one-handed before he could pull the trigger. She looked back at him without moving. She had waited out deer on cold mornings for longer than this standoff would last. From the drainage. Stillness. Both slope riders were down. The eastern ridgeline rider was still picking his way down loose stone, a minute out at least. Mears on the high ground had lost his angle when she dropped off the shelf. Vane did the math. He lowered the pistol. "This isn't over," he said. "No," Thorn agreed. "But today it is." Vane walked back down the slope. She kept the Winchester on him until he was below the drainage line. Then she sat down on the limestone shelf because her shoulder had made that decision for her. And she pressed her right hand against the wound and breathed. Thorn was next to her before. She had finished the damage assessment. He moved her hand and looked at the wound the way a person looks at something they have seen before and know how to read. "Through and through," he said. "Muscle, not bone. Yes. Can you ride?" "Yes, we need to move." "Mears will reposition." "Yes." "Can you?" I said yes, she said. "Help me up." He did. They came down out of the mountains at dusk. The wound was bound with the last of her muslin and his bandana. The bleeding had slowed to manageable. She had her left arm strapped to her side with a piece of the cut tether rope to stop the unconscious motion that reopened it. She rode straight back because that was the only way she rode. The Appaloosa moved carefully under her. The Mare had noticed something was wrong and adjusted. Thorn rode slightly ahead and scanned. She had given him back the Colt somewhere during the hours after the cliff dwelling, pushed it across the fire without a word. He had taken it without a word, and neither of them had talked about what that exchange was. He had one round left in the Winchester. Below them, the lights of Tombstone were beginning to show in the dusk. Yellow points scattered across the flat ground. A town she knew and did not like but could transact business in, which was what mattered. They came down the last grade and reached the flat, and the trail forked, east into Tombstone, south toward the San Pedro River, toward country she knew, toward Bidziel in the winter camp waiting with the small store of food she had left him, and the knowledge that she was coming back. She stopped the Appaloosa at the fork. Thorn stopped the bay. He turned and looked at her. She looked at the town lights. The $40 was real. She had earned it 3 times over. The tracking, the field surgery, the flood, the cliff dwelling, the fight on the outcrop. Bidziel was 14 years old, and the winter was not going to get easier, and $40, carefully managed, was several months of food. She looked at Thorn. He was watching her, and his face was still. Not hopeful. He did not look like a man counting on hope. He looked like a man who had decided to accept whatever the verdict was without arguing it. Somewhere in the past 3 days he had stopped managing what he appeared to be and started being what he was, which was not much of anything yet, but was at least honest. "The cash," she said. "Yes, if you walk in there and give the sheriff the location and your testimony against Cord Vane. The charges against you might be negotiated." "Might," he said. "That's a country where nothing gets decided," she finished. "But it is a better country than the one you are in now." "I robbed a stage," he said. "Shot a man. I don't walk out of a sheriff's office clean. Best case, reduced sentence. That's still years." He looked at her. "Worst case, I hang." "Yes, I know." The desert was quiet. The last light was leaving the sky in the west. Copper first, then a faint rose, then gray. The first stars were showing above the eastern mountains. She reached into her vest and took out the circular. She had carried it 11 days, and the paper was worn at the fold lines. She looked at the woodblock illustration, the rough approximation of the jaw. The gray eyes rendered in bad ink that looked nothing like the actual gray eyes watching her from 3 feet away. Wanted. Alive or dead? She looked at the man. Then she folded the circular one more time and put it back in her pocket. "The reward on the full Vane crew," she said. "All 7, plus the Wells Fargo recovery. Total posted is $430. I confirmed this before I started tracking." Thorn went still. "Yes, your testimony is what makes that collection possible." "Yes, if you are delivered in custody, your testimony is subject to legal challenge. The reward gets cut or disappears." She looked at the lights of Tombstone. If you walk in as a free man giving voluntary information with a tracker to vouch for your cooperation, the full reward is paid to the tracker who brought you in. Voluntarily, silence. That's not how it works, he said slowly. I have to be in custody. You have to be present. That is different. He looked at her for a long time, checking the corners of it, looking for the part she wasn't saying. And then she watched him stop looking. Watched him let it be what it was. A woman who had the right to deliver him for $40 and had decided, for reasons that were part calculation and part something neither of them had named yet, to bring them both in for $430. You'll have to vouch for me to the sheriff, he said. I know, a Chiricahua. Woman vouching for a wanted outlaw. I have brought 3 men to the Cochise County Sheriff's Office, she said. All 3 alive, all 3 as I represented them. My word carries there. I'll still have to stand before a judge. Yes. I don't know what that looks like on the other side of it. No, she said. But it will be honest. That is more than you have had for some time. He was quiet for a while. The town sounds reached them now at this distance. A piano somewhere in the saloon district. A dog barking at the edge of town. The horses breathed in the cold. I'll give the sheriff everything, Thorne said. Veins full operation. The cache location. Every name I know, every safe house, every official they paid. All of it, he paused. I've been carrying it 4 years. I'd like to put it down. Most roads that look like endings, she said, are only bends. He looked at her. She had not said that aloud before. She had thought it in the cliff dwelling, watching him sleep in the ember light, and she had held it back. Where did you hear that? He asked. My grandmother. She said many things I didn't understand until later. Smart woman, yes. She looked at him once more, the way she looked at things she was committing to memory. Full attention. No hurry. She was. She turned the Appaloosa east toward the lights. He turned the bay beside her. They rode toward Tombstone together with no rope between them. $430 ahead. The 3 days of hard country behind them. And what came next, an open question that neither of them was ready to answer. But they were riding toward it. And they were riding together. That was enough to start.
Thanks for watching this story till the end. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And before you go, check out these other amazing Western stories waiting for you next. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you on the next ride.